Hello, I'm Hugh Millward, the developer of a game called Warsim: The Realm of Aslona, which I'll put up on the screen now. And this is essentially just a little story of how I ended up accidentally being a game developer and surviving for 5 years, including through the whole pandemic, on a game that runs entirely out of Windows command prompt. It's a bloody strange story, so I'll get into it straight away. So as with most people who want to be game developers, that ambition starts when you're young and you're playing video games and you fucking love video games. I mean, who doesn't? Many people, but, you know, they're the most popular media in the world, I think. And, man, I fucking loved that shit as a kid. Always dreamed of being a game developer, but it always felt impossible. I never really planned to do it and thought it was possible. And I remember at one point as a kid finding some sort of game-making software kit in a PC pre-owned store section. And the shit I made in it was horrible, but it showed that something was possible. You know, I was making just little level edits, essentially, of some pre-made game system, but it really showed what was possible, and it unlocked something in me, which didn't go to much use until I discovered Flash games. Now, I couldn't fucking code, so at the time, I just stole Flash game code from, random websites that had open source code on it, slapped them together, and made some really shitty games that pretty sure they got deleted from Newgrounds, which that's a really good barometer for whether you've got some steaming hot poop in your hands when it comes to game dev. But hey, worked on a few of those for a while, but nothing really came of it. And I sort of left it at that really for a while. And then I went to college, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to college. I'm going to learn to program. I'm going to go to university, and I'm going to become a game developer. Yeah, finally going to come together. And, I got kicked out of college after the first year. For my absolutely terrible grades, and I tried to hack the college to change my grades. Did not go well for me, but live and learn, innit? So we move on, and I'm working in a call center and taking up some bar shifts at the same time. And meanwhile, I'm learning C++ for some reason from YouTube tutorials. I can't remember exactly how I ended up on that. And yeah, I learned little things, mostly to do with procedural generation, which was something I was really obsessed with. I really loved the idea of proc-gen, because it's creating something that then creates something that you can't predict necessarily. I mean, you can kind of predict it, because obviously you're filling the data that goes into it, but it was fucking mad seeing all the proc-gen stuff coming out at me. But it was just proc-gen items for a game that never existed. And it was always kind of disappointing creating what I thought was awesome content for a game that no one would ever see because it wasn't a game. And after a while, I followed a tutorial on how to make a very basic battle simulation thing in C++. And I remember working on it a little bit, following the tutorial, and then sort of abandoning the tutorial to just add my own shit. So I added like an arena, I added like the ability to buy and sell troops, just little extra functions that it was like, oh wow, I could do this. And I indulged in that for a little while, and then kind of got bored of it and dropped the project. And a little while later, in an obsessive time waiting for Fallout 4 to come out, where I just wanted more Fallout, I made a Wasteland-inspired game called The Wastes. There we go. I had to think then. Bloody hell. It's been a long time. And I started working on that one, and I got really into it, actually, really enjoyed it. And at some point, some other people started playing it too. It was on itch.io. Some people were downloading it, people were commenting, and people actually seemed to enjoy it. And I ended up with a community on Reddit of over 300 people who were all playing and enjoying the game, sharing screenshots, and it was madness. It felt like I'd made it. It felt like I was finally a game developer. Finally legit. Very rarely on occasion I would even get donations via itch.io, but not all the time, but still, amazing to get even a penny out of something that I put my heart and soul into and really enjoyed. So I worked on the Wastes for 6 months, and during that time, I think I was working full-time at a hotel. And I remember working on that hotel at the bar, and I would be writing notes for new coding ideas, new systems and stuff on napkins in the bar while I was waiting between customers to serve. I was that obsessed with it. And then tragedy struck, and a computer crash completely wiped the source code, and my dumb ass never made a single backup copy of the game, because I think at the time those 6 months were spent very close to the source, not exactly thinking, oh, I have something here, I should really back this up. So a lesson was learned there, but Also depression. Also very big stress and depression that I finally built something that people cared about. I'd finally built a bridge that was almost taking me to the game dev dreams I'd always hoped for. And I fucked it up big time. And, that really sucked. And for a while I thought, fuck everything. And I just, lived my life, carried on with my jobs, carried on partying with my friends, and just sort of mourned the loss of my my old ambitions. And then at some point, I picked up that old battle simulation thing, and I kept working on it. I just kept adding weird shit to it. And over time, it kind of became a bit of a crutch, a bit of a fun hobby I would do in my spare time, just expanding this thing. It didn't have as big of a community as the Wasteland game at the time, but one started forming in time. Some people started finding it, enjoying it, and suggesting their own ideas. And in time, it grew and grew and grew. And eventually, I paid $100 and submitted that bad boy to Steam Greenlight, which does no longer exist. But at the time, it was the entry fee to get on Steam. And the idea of having a game on Steam was insane. It was so legitimate. It was so unbelievable. And obviously, you had to go through Steam Greenlight. You had to pass a popularity contest, which for a text-based game running out of CMD, I thought, I'm probably fucked here, but we'll do it anyway. So I submitted the $100 fee, which at the time really intimidated me as a prospect. But I thought, you miss all the shots you don't take. So I shot the shot. I paid the money. I submitted it on Steam. And they actually abandoned the Greenlight program and let all the games that were waiting in. So I managed to get in at the very end before they finished Greenlight. And within the first week, I'd made my money back already. And I guess that initial boost of new game on Steam, it got promoted and shown to a few people in a few places. And it was insane. I remember going to a shop and just refreshing the Steam page and seeing that, I've made another $50 in the last 3 hours. And I thought, fucking hell, this is incredible. I went out and bought a bunch of snacks and had a nice snack feast with one of my friends. And after a little while, it sort of balanced out, and that initial Steam income stopped coming. And occasionally I'd sell a copy. So very rarely a little copy would sell. Most weeks, very little, maybe none. And it is what it is. It was bloody incredible that I had any kind of extra income source. It really kind of blew my mind. And I was on cloud nine the whole time. But I wasn't living the dream as a game developer. I wasn't, making fat stacks like you see a lot of indie developers very, very able to do with solid games. But I kept working on it. I kept it on the side. And obviously I had to keep working a full-time job. And I kept cracking at it. And I think at some point, wasn't really working on it as much, and it sort of became a bit of a occasional thing I'd put a bit of time into. And then I went backpacking around Asia and traveling, and I met some people, and I showed some of them the game I've been working on, because obviously we talk about, what are you doing? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And one of the guys actually told me, he thought, hey, that's really cool. You should keep at that. You should work on that more. And it got me thinking, yeah, okay, you're right. I really should. And immediately that night in that backpackers hostel, I was programming. And I came home. I worked really hard, even in the airport, and ended up releasing an update called Warsim's Not Dead, which I believe at this point was maybe 2018 or something like that. That update came out. And from that point onwards, I professionalized my style of working. So I made sure that I was keeping people updated. I tried to make my change logs that I was releasing way more readable with lots of screenshots. I worked harder, listened to the community a lot more, and tried to just put updates out as much as possible. So at some points, I would put out multiple a week. At one point, I even managed to do one every single day for a week, which was actually quite fucking hard, but hey. And I just put the effort in, put the energy in, kept working. And the thing that gave me more fuel than anything, including any kind of money, was that the whole time that it was on Steam, there were people that played it, talked about it, left reviews, and cared. They actually cared about something that I put so much passion and energy and of my own heart and soul into. And it's really hard to turn away from that. I felt the moment I saw those comments and saw that love and appreciation, I couldn't move away from it. I was indebted to these people, and I had to deliver what I promised. And one of the other things that really surprised me about game development on the more pro scale was that I thought the suggestions that I would get from the community would be mostly hot garbage. And that mostly these people wouldn't have a fucking clue what they were talking about, that most of the ideas would not be relevant, and occasionally there might be something that I'd see and go, yeah, they make a good point. But what actually happened was that 99% of the ideas that people suggested for Warsim were fucking great ideas. So much so that I ended up feature creeping for probably 8 years total development, The game still gets developed now. I found an old list of ideas that have been gathered from Warsim players over the years, and there was a total of 2,200 lines, I believe. Each line a bullet point of a separate idea. So that gives you an idea. And bearing in mind, I'm pretty sure I added thousands of them over the course of the development. Those are just the dregs that remain. And yeah, these people were putting so much thought into what they were suggesting. You know, so many things that I saw it, and as soon as I saw it, it was like DLC for the brain. Like, I need this in the game now because I was playing it myself. I built the game for myself. It was always my project before it was for anyone else. And so having people put care, effort, energy, and their thought into something that I put so much energy into, I had to listen, and I tried my best. I tried to reply to every comment, and, you know, bizarrely, they just kept coming. People kept playing. People kept talking about it and checking it out, even on a smaller scale, but a scale nonetheless, for a game that runs out of Windows CMD, which I could really never wrap my head around. And to give you a little perspective of where I'm at the moment, the last 365 days, the last year, technically, has been the best that Warsim has ever had. And this is what that looks like. This is the... let me hide my face. There we go. This is the current year, the current 365. Obviously, you see the previous year was $32,000. I mean, that's nothing to be shy about. But this most recent year has been absolutely bloody insane. Obviously, that amount of money is not what I end up getting in my bank account. Steam takes 30% of everything, and I live in the UK, so that gets converted into GBP, which is sadly a lot lower than lower than the US dollar. Or maybe it's not sad, I don't know, but it's still absolutely insane to see how many people have been checking out and playing the game. So you can pause the screen if you want to read that anymore, but there we go, you can get my lovely mug back on the screen. And yeah, just after a period of time, I professionalized my development. I kept working on it as hard as possible, and at some point, maybe around 2019, it became kind of full-time for me, which I feel like I have to pinch myself whenever I say that I'm a full-time game developer working on a Windows command prompt game that I ended up stuck working through because I lost another passion project and have too much ADHD to keep learning how to do C++ properly, so I just kept working on one that worked through the command prompt. It's bloody strange, but I can't complain. And I think there are a couple of reasons why it worked for me, and I'll break those down for any prospective developers, because I think if I can do it with a bizarre Windows command prompt game and a very shit programming skill, then anyone can do anything really if they just persist. But I think the key things that really helped me were making something chiefly that I enjoyed. So obviously some people do make games that they don't enjoy because they're making them for someone else, or they're making them for a genre they assume will be popular, but I think there's no easier way to fail than making something that you don't even want to play yourself, because how can you expect other people to play it? And how can you make it good if you don't even know what would make it good because you don't even care about it or don't enjoy it? I found that one weird, and I mean, it's definitely doable. People definitely probably put it off, but I don't know. That's a tough one. The second thing was listening to feedback. So obviously, you know, I talk about a lot of the good comments I got, a lot of the suggestions I got. I also got bad reviews sometimes that would be sometimes pretty vitriolic, pretty hostile. But in those reviews, there was sometimes even a nugget of valuable points, good points they raised about the game. You know, sometimes people would be complaining about a feature. Hey, it really sucks that this doesn't exist, or like, oh yeah, the game really gets shit at this point or something. And, you know, I would look at those, and sometimes the initial response to any kind of criticism of something you put so much of yourself into is to be like, hey, fuck you. But you know what? Almost all of them had something valuable in them, in that it was a valid critique coming from someone who'd spent money wanting to enjoy the game, you know? And I'd never want someone to spend money on purchasing something that I've made and not enjoying it. When it's digital, it doesn't cost me anything for them to have it. So, you know, I'd rather that be refunded than someone have something they don't want, you know? But a lot of those critiques were valid, and I took as many of them as I could and kept working and expanding on them, and I'd reply to those reviews after time and say, hey, I actually listened to what you said, and I've added and changed this. And the amount of times people would actually apologize or change the review or thank me and come and check it out and say, hey, you know what? It's actually fucking okay. Like, thank you for listening. I think sometimes people don't expect to be listened to, you know? And it can be hard too. I mean, I'm fortunate that on the more niche side of the scale that I'm at, with I think about 40,000 copies sold maybe, and something like 90,000 total activated online in general. That's a lot, but it's not too much that I can't reply to basically every comment. I get a couple of comments a day. It's not that difficult to stay on top of them. And obviously, some developers who are suffering from success can't exactly reply to every comment their game gets. And if you're at that point, congratulations, you live in the fucking dream. But I'm at the point where, I get a reasonable number. And what I usually do is I save the tabs on my my Google Chrome if I can't reply to them all in one day, because sometimes, especially if someone's writing a big block essay, I can't reply to that straight away because I want to reply with the thought and energy that it deserves. But there's a lot of value in those. And so if you get anyone who's willing to talk about your game and leave a comment and share any thoughts about it, that itself is gold. And that itself is coming from someone who cares about your game enough to talk about it, who tried it, and their thoughts and opinions are valid. They're coming from someone who is a gamer who's experienced it. There are so many fucking good nuggets of information you can get from those things that can help you craft and hone something into something better. And at the end of the day, if eventually someone will find every bug, right? So you get bug reports, but also there's not really many original thoughts. And you'd be surprised how many times people would suggest something, and then a couple of weeks later, someone would suggest the same thing and the same thing and the same thing, and that's happening enough times, and you actually listen to them and you add the thing that they've suggested, the same amount of people that would have the same kind of thought would find that in game and go, holy shit, this game is made for me. They have this exact thing that I've always wanted, And if you do that a lot of times, you end up with a game that really indulges people when they're indulging in the game itself. And I mean, I've had to play my own game thousands of hours. I've been playing this for 8 years, and there are parts of it that at this point, I know everything that's going to happen. It's hard for it to be surprising to me, but a lot of the proc gen elements, and especially a lot of the things that have come from other people's suggestions, and also watching other people play my game on YouTube videos or watching them share their experiences and realizing they're playing it in a way that I would never play it, but they've taught me things about my own game. I saw a speedrunner complete my game in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. And I'd take maybe half an hour to do that shit. I couldn't believe it. And the stuff they were doing was such a strange way of doing things. But as soon as it all came together, I couldn't believe that they'd done it. And this person opened my eyes to the ways to game my own systems. And it's really humbling. But yeah, the other tips I would have is in the marketing department, which is maybe less fun and joyous and, we love our fans and stuff, and more to do with hard graft and hard work. And marketing is a fucking job. It is a real job. And it generally feels like some days I spent more time marketing than I did programming. But I tried my best to do as much as I could. As soon as it was something that I was earning money from, I tried to do as much as I could to make the game visible to people. So I posted it on subreddits. I sent hundreds of emails to YouTubers, streamers, to magazine editors, to forum admins and things. I made posts places. I shared stuff. I wrote my own articles. I did podcasts for people. I put my own YouTube videos up. I mean, arguably this one could be marketing. I mean, you don't really market to other game developers. That's kind of a rule 101. But, you miss every shot you don't take also. I don't know. I mean, you don't want to spam, and that's kind of never really a helpful thing, and you want to avoid that. But definitely selectively outreaching anywhere you think it could be relevant, and learning the lessons that you can along the way also help. I mean, there is also the classic, make a fantastic game and it'll sell itself, but that is a tough one. I mean, I'd like to think my game's great, and it does kind of sell itself at this point. I mean, I've spent many a day scratching my ass and smoking weed, and I still get a fucking maybe 100 sales in a day, if I'm having a fucking fantastic one. It's unpredictable, and it happens out of nowhere, but marketing is an important one, and getting it out there, putting it out on the internet, and making it as visible as possible, networking with other people, these are all really important things. And I hope I'm not waffling, but these are the things that I've learned in my my years of very bizarre game development in a very niche and strange way. And the fact that I'm able to survive from a text-based game that runs out of Windows command prompt in 2023, I think if I can do that, then any game developer who's watching this who has any ideas or passions or hobbies that they want to pursue, fucking do it. Fuck your fears and anxieties. If you can put the time in and the effort in, you listen to the feedback you get, and you just try and make something that you enjoy. If you quit, then it's over. But if you keep working on it and tweaking it and changing it, you could make something within a period of time that is fucking magnificent. Don't let your own thoughts and anxiety stop you. But I'm going to stop waffling now and let my thoughts sit. If anyone's got any comments, any ideas, or any questions they have for me, drop them in the comment section. I do try and reply to basically everything I get. But yeah, other than that, the game itself is Worse Than the Realm of Azlona. Now, obviously, this isn't me marketing it, but just if you want to check it out and see what it was I was talking about. And again, if you want to pause the screen, the numbers that I was sharing from the last year are there for what they're worth. I mean, you know, numbers don't really mean anything. There's not much you can take from it data-wise, but it's just, you know, just to show you where I'm at. And then I'm not purely talking up my ass, because you see some YouTube game developers who love to be gurus, but it turns out their only games have sold like 3 copies, and I feel that's a bit disingenuous. So I don't think I'm a fucking fantastic game developer, or I may be someone to listen to entirely, but I thought I'd share my 2 cents and show that I am actually a legitimate, mildly successful game developer, obviously just in a very weird, strange way. But if you've made it this far listening to my unhinged ranting, I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. And there's plenty of other random videos on Warsome itself on the channel, but obviously if you're just watching game dev videos, there may be more to come. Obviously the video quality on this ain't great, but at least we got our wonderful little Yeti microphone there. So thank you very much for watching. Not really sure I'm going to sign this out, so I'm just going to say have a fucking good one and take care of yourselves.